Thank you for tuning in to another episode of my Veterans to Success podcast. You probably know by now, my mission is to help 1 million veterans and entrepreneur business owners achieve the dreams, goals, and aspirations they deserve. That is why I created the Veterans to Success podcast, because I get to interview guys, men and women, who want to share their fascinating stories with you about their time before, during and after their time in the military, so you can benefit and overcome your challenges. So sit back, relax, and get ready to be mesmerized, astounded, and entertained. Hello and welcome to another episode of Veterans to Success, the podcast where I get to speak to seemingly ordinary people with extraordinary stories. And I've got Tim Jones with me here today. Hello, Tim. How are you doing?
Hello. Good to see you, Joe.
Yeah, and you. And we've known each other a while now, haven't we? We first met ages ago. So it's good to see you. And welcome to this podcast. And I know you've got a very interesting story. And you know the score. There's no big fanfare for the common man or woman. There's no big introduction, because what I like to do is a reveal as we go along. So let's dive straight in and go back to your childhood. So what was happening in your childhood as you were growing up?
Well, you know, everything's normal to you, isn't it? Because it's your lived experience. But I was just a normal school kid growing up in Rotherham in South Yorkshire. Good mates, loved school, really enjoyed it, excelled. Brother and sister that probably struggled a little more with school than I did. But yeah, just loved it growing up in a northern town, working class lad, with two parents that worked. So we were latchkey kids, where I got my love of cooking, because I was cooking when my mum and dad were late in from work, for my brother and sister. But yeah, fairly standard existence for me. Lots of mates, you know, playing out, getting bollocked because we were coming in after the street lights had gone on, and the usual thing.
And you know, you say it was pretty standard, but you know, that's an interesting word, or normal, because there's no such thing as normal, is there?
No, exactly. But it was, I didn't feel. I think, you know, the people that were in the news at the time, and, you know, I mean, at the time there was a lot around, you know, people that were living in destitution, you know, so people in Africa that were starving, you'd got Live Aid because of that. And I think I grew up, you know, I was one of those standard kids that got told that, you know, eat your dinner because there are children starving in Africa. So be thankful for what you've got in front of you.
Yeah. I remember those days. Yeah, definitely. And you mentioned as well when we were chatting that, and you mentioned just in the introduction about yourself, that you did well at school and your brother and sister weren't as academically inclined, and that caused a bit of friction, didn't it?
Yeah. So my sister is a lot brighter than me, but she got told by one of her teachers that she was stupid.
Right.
And I remember the furore at home. My mum was apoplectic with anger. And it really impacted my sister, and still does to this day. She was by far and away more naturally gifted academically, but, you know, junior school just got impacted, and has this very low opinion of herself. And my brother just struggled.
Yeah, and that's shocking, because when I and you'll know this as well, you'll appreciate, when I work with clients and I'm coaching or mentoring them, what I find out often is that they could be 40, 50, 60-year-old, and they're basing their performance ability on what they were told when they were 7 or before. Someone might have said to them, "You're stupid," and like they just live it then. and actually they're not. It's just someone's opinion of them, and I think that it can be quite often difficult to shake that away, can't it?
Well, it's in your formative years. Stephen Bartlett, Diary of a CEO, one of the questions that he asks a lot of his guests is, what was your life, in the formative years, 7 and younger, 5 and younger?
Well,
What
that's what.
happened
Yeah, well, that's
that
why I
impacted?
start. That's why I start the podcast with this,
Yeah,
because I know like as an accredited master coach, I've done all the psychological training and looked into things, and 7 and before are your formative years.
yeah.
That gauges your performance through the years, and it is quite a telling strategy, especially when someone believes that they can't do something for the rest of their life.
It's one of the things, where Brian Tracy in some of his books, if you're constantly telling kids, no, you can't do that, stop it,
Mm,
they're not exploring, they're not expanding their field of experience.
yeah,
And so it creates this inner talk of self-limitation.
mm,
So, yeah.
definitely. And so you did okay at school.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I just enjoyed it, and if you enjoy something,
Mm,
you just engage with it more. You are naturally driven to work, and yeah, I just love sort of acquiring knowledge, and it's something that's never left me.
that's brilliant. And you were telling me there was one particular point in your life where you wholeheartedly agreed with what your dad said because he mentioned military service, didn't he?
Yeah, as I mentioned, working class background, mum and dad both working, and I think my dad was worried about, had identified that I was probably university material, and recommended that I join the military, who would provide me with a trade background and an education.
Mm.
And but I'd already thought that I wanted to join the army, so I'd at least got one of my parents on side. My mum was rather reluctant to sign the release forms, permission forms, but we managed to talk around.
And what age was this? What age were you then?
So I was 15 when I first started looking at joining the army. I went along to the Careers Information Office in Sheffield, sat down, got invited back to do the tests, passed those tests, and then got called upstairs to talk to the major, who was this big, fat, passed over major that, suggested I go for a commission, which I wasn't bothered about. But my mum and dad thought it was a good idea. So I started following 2 tracks. One to join as a soldier, and I got offered an electronics technician apprenticeship in the REME. And the other one was to head to Sandhurst, go through Welbeck, and join the military on a commission.
And of those, you chose Sandhurst.
Commission, yeah.
Yeah. And what was that like? You turn up on Sandhurst, and you probably get the phrase from the sergeant, "I'm your mother now," or something similar to that.
Yeah, I'm your mother. I'm your father. The platoon commander's your mother. We're not married, so you know what that makes you. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, those days. And so, what was it like? Joking aside, when you leave home and there's a long goodbye. What were you feeling at that time?
So having gone through Welbeck, which was the Army sixth form,
Yeah.
when it was still in workshop, some would say it's the backdoor entry into Sandhurst, but I did 2 years there, did my A levels, and at the time it was very much around recruiting for the cause of the army. I think it went tri-service when it moved to Loughborough.
Yeah.
But it was just, I was doing my A levels, so we were doing CCF. So you were getting some of the basic military stuff there. So going to Sandhurst, I was just really excited, stepping out on this journey, and stepping into the military and being able to serve.
And at Welbeck, because I'm interested in Welbeck College, how much of it was military discipline and how much was it academia?
So we used to do sort of CCF one afternoon per week, but a lot of it was around it was a little bit, I guess, like a private school. You're in uniform, you're required to be gentlemanly, in your conduct. It was all male when I went. They subsequently made it co-educational. Yeah, it was instilling in you the principles of the military. But
And when you use
actual
that mnemonic CCF, just elaborate in case.
Sorry, Combined Cadet Force.
Yeah.
It wasn't actually Combined Cadet Force. It was an Army Cadet Force.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Okay. Fantastic. So you get to the end of Welbeck and then you turn up at Sandhurst. How much of a difference was that? How much of a shock was it? Or were you just up for it and straight in?
Yeah, just up for it. Just really looking forward to it. The tabbing, the drill, the fitness, the study. It was, just brilliant. I absolutely loved Sandhurst. A good mix of people. Had a really eclectic group within the platoon I was in. I was in 3 Platoon Alamein. And we'd got the foreign students. We'd got a brilliant guy called Tiong Sang Lau from Singapore. It was only in the last month or so we found out that his English name was Derek. So for the last month, he became known as Del Boy. But we'd got an I was the room in between 2 vastly different individuals. David Thompson, who was son of Major General Julian Thompson of Falklands fame.
Oh, right.
And in the room on the other side was a guy called Chris Bond, who was affectionately called Dirtbox Bond because of his shared sexual exploits. But he was an ex-Marine that had broken his back, was told he would never walk again. So similar story to yours. I think I've shared it with you. Broke his back, was told he'd never walk again, but was one of the fittest guys in the platoon. And he ended up joining the Royal, what is now the Royal Logistic Corps.
RALC at the time. Yeah. Now, that's fabulous. So with that, because people generally do not seem to realize that we train officers from all around the world, don't we?
Yeah.
I mean, what sort of countries do we train, which is particularly relevant at the minute, because I know I've worked with officers from, pretty much all corners of the globe.
So we had a number of Middle Eastern officers, and they were already commissioned, but they came in as officer cadets, having passed through their own individual countries' academies. They then came over to get the training for what was perceived to be the world's superlative officer training academy. Having seen some of the output from West Point, I think that West Point in America has an argument for being the most elite. But Sandhurst nevertheless has a long history of turning out commissioned officers. But we'd got the son of the Prime Minister of Jordan in our platoon. We got Derek Chong Sang Lau, who was Singaporean. There were a lot from the African. Idi Amin trained at Sandhurst. So was a Sandhurst commissioned officer. So just all around the world. vastly different individuals, including now Gurkha officers from Nepal.
Yeah, Gurkhas are great soldiers. I love working with Gurkhas. And of course, when you think of the resources that America has to the resources that the UK have, I mean, we are the leaders, really, in our military training. And I've worked with a lot of Americans as well, and they're our comrades, brothers and sisters in arms. I think for the size of our country, we box well above our weight.
Yeah, I think we've got a very, very rich history, military history, haven't we?
Yeah.
From the Navy, the Marines, Army, and subsequently the RAF.
Yeah. So after your time at Sandhurst, how long did you train before you got
a year at Sandhurst?
Yeah.
Commissioned in '85, and then out to Hong Kong to serve with the Gurkhas.
And how was that first posting in Hong Kong?
Brilliant, scary. Taking the other thing, I'd gone from an environment where we were getting up at 5:30 to do block duties, and the Gurkhas at the time was still very much run like the Raj. So I was given two batmen. I'd got a Chinese batman that did all my washing and ironing of civvy clothes, and then a Gurkha batman that came in and did all my uniform.
Oh, well, that's a bit cushy then.
Oh, that was it was kind of expected. I wasn't given the choice.
Yeah. That's not exactly the treatment I got.
No. But it was fantastic meeting, just working with the Gurkhas and just seeing the vast difference in culture, working with a completely different culture. We'd also got Hong Kong Chinese troops working within the squadron as well. I was based up in Sekong.
And how long were you there for?
Just 6 months prior to going to do my troop commander's course back at Blandford.
Okay. And so your troop commander's course, right? I mean, we could probably talk for a couple of hours on Hong Kong and what went on. What was your most memorable part of Hong Kong? Memorable moment in that 6 months?
I think just before I left, we did a massive FTX, full troop exercise on Lantau Island, which is now where the airport is. And that was 3 weeks in the Ulu. I think that the biggest thing within that, I worked with a fantastic yeoman of signals called Ken Jones, with whom I'm still in touch all these years later.
Yeah.
And Ken and I, the fog was in on the top of Lantau, and we were doing a recovery. So we set up a patrol to go up and recover the radios from the radio relay points. And it was just, for me, the first real lesson in, adapt, improvise, overcome. Just figure it, do it. You just go do it. Really instilled the can-do attitude within me, but equally, seeing it sort of instilled in all those around me as well, that you just face it, you just do it, give it a go, and learn by failure.
Yeah, which is interesting, because we're going to come on to failure and how you deal with that a bit later. But I love the learn by failure, because there's win or learn. It's not win or lose, is it? It's win or learn. So you get posted for your troop commander's course, and how long was that for?
6 months in Hong Kong. Oh, sorry, the troop commander's course, right? Was so 4 months.
4 months.
4 months at Blandford, doing all of your various. We were the first troop commander's course to do ptarmigan, which was the field deployable trunk communication system. We did radio, VHF, HF, VHF radio comms exercises. We did where we had to do typing, we had to learn about, the various elements and propagation techniques and comms planning.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And I mean, I always, well, I mean, regiments take the mick out of each other anyway, because I'm an engineer. And when we first met, I said, so you're responsible for our comms going down, and
Yeah. I mean, it's a thankless task, as we always knew when the comms were in and working. Same, internet. When your internet's in and working, you don't say anything, but as soon as it goes down, you're the first in to complain, aren't you?
Yeah, definitely. So what was you? I mean, so now you've been in for a few years by this time, and after you took commander's course, where's your first posting?
Went out to Germany, 7th Signal Regiment, which was the largest regiment in the Corps. They just had ptarmigan deployed, rolled out, and were one of the first units to pick it up. So we were 1st UK Armoured Division. Well, yeah, 1BR Corps. We were the Corps level provision for
what
the.
year was that?
1980. It was Christmas '86. I went there.
Yeah, I remember ptarmigan being released, and yeah, it was an interesting journey at first. So, what position did you hold at?
I was a line troop commander.
And what was your feeling? How did you feel about being in command of the men at that time? What was the feeling of responsibility you had?
So the motto of Sandhurst is serve to lead. And I took that to every unit I went to, that, effectively, I'm here to serve you. I'm here to make sure you get your courses, that your career progresses, that you get your leave, that your family are well looked after, that your welfare is all catered for, that your pay's covered, and what have you. But equally, I'm here to ensure that you maintain discipline, deliver on the mission. Yeah, I mean, it's quite scary being a young 20-year-old and having, 40-year-old troop sergeants that, you are in charge of. But I think it's equally important to recognize that, as I used to say to my seniors, I'm here to learn. We run this troop. Shit rolls downhill. It lands on me, but I will dish it out if it needs to be dished out.
And the other thing as well, I know that when I served when young officers came in, one-pit wonders, and you'll know what I mean by that. Not disrespectful to the rank. It's just that they're young and they're not experienced. And interestingly, because we're going to talk about coaches and mentors. In fact, this is probably a good place to open that. When you said you were in command, i.e., you're the commissioned officer with overall command of the men and women, the staff sergeant and sergeant are quite often your mentors or coaches, aren't they, as well?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, because I remember I was building a bridge, not on my own, by the way, with a whole troop of guys, and I was right of bridge, because there's right of bridge, left of bridge, centre of bridge, and we were going to do a reverse strip across the river, which means that we build it, then we go the other side, and then take it out once the battle group have gone through. And to do that, you need to put a headless pin, which you don't use for when you're going to just build it and then bring it back for practice. You have to put a headless pin in one place. And this second lieutenant, it was 3 o'clock in the morning, it was freezing, we were all tired. He says, "Oh, Connor, that doesn't go there." I said, "Sir, with all due respect." And I'd already served 3 years, and I'd done this a few times. He'd just come in from Sandhurst, and the sergeant, because I was holding my cool, but I thought this is daft because if we don't put this in the right place and put it where this young officer saying, we're not going to be able to strip the bridge out. And then the staff sergeant came and said, "Sir, come with me, please," and just put his arm around him. Let's have a chat.
Yeah, I think, you know, that there's the experience of it, that when I went to do my young officer training, the junior commandant staff course, and one of my seniors was desperate to take over the troop and be troop commander. You know, I got back and he just went, "Yeah, you can have it." And I went, what's the issue? He goes, "They are fucking whinging bastards." And and I said, "What?" And you know, we laugh and joke now that, you know, if as soon as the lads stops, you know, lads and lasses stop whinging, there's something really wrong. But you know, the squaddies love to complain. And it's, you know, great. It's just part of the culture, isn't it? But he just couldn't handle it. And I know when I took over the golf troop at 28 Signal Regiment, and there was a staff sergeant in charge, who was brilliant, one of the best staff sergeants I'd had in Gibson. And I was expecting a bit of a battle to take, and he was just like, "No, I can't be doing with it." You know, so it was very much the pastoral support side. He was very mission focused, right? This is what we do. And it was, you know, very much the troop commander is the mother of the troop, and the staff sergeant is is the father. So yeah, it was really interesting. But it's about working as a team, isn't it?
Yeah, of course it is. And so you've got the motto which has been instilled into you, serve to lead, and you with 7th Signal Regiment in Germany. How long were you with them? And then where was your next posting, and how did that come about?
So that was, you know, as part of the technical corps, I did. You seem to be permanently in education within the military, which is brilliant. But I did about 10 months with it. Couldn't wait to leave. I'd got perhaps the worst officer I'd ever served under, Neil Fisher, Major Neil Fisher, was just renowned as being appalling. I mean, things he used to do. He used to have a winter equipment lecture that he used to give, and he used to bring in this Gucci Gore-Tex rucksack. He'd take out all of the, you know, the Norgy stuff, the Norgy shirt, the Norgy jumper, and various other bits and pieces, and then conclude the presentation by saying, "But you can't use it because it's not issue."
So that's about as much use as a chocolate fire guard then, isn't it?
Absolutely. And, you know, there was one exercise where, you know, a couple of people went down with frostbite because they were not allowed to use this Norgy kit. And the guys hated him with a passion.
Yeah, well, that reminds me of Bullseye. This is what you could have won.
Yeah, exactly. He was a deplorable individual known as Blackadder because he looked vaguely like him. But the worst, you know, we talk about leadership. You know, there was one point where, you know, he drove the squadron, you know, just incessantly, and was despised by all the troop commanders, seniors, and everything. Nobody liked him.
So what did you learn from that for you?
How not to do it.
Yeah. Which is an important.
How not to lead, which is as important as, yeah. He got absolutely no compassion for the soldiers, was an absolute megalomaniac. Whether or not he changed, you know, from what I heard, he went on to command a regiment, but, you know, the people that suffered under him there, you know, had very similar stories.
Okay. So what, from your 7th Signal Regiment then, where did you go to next? And how much influence did you have on it?
No, I went and did my in-service degree
right.
At Shrivenham, Royal Military College of Science, now the Defence Academy. Did a 3-year degree in electronic systems engineering.
Which then took you, so that was just purely academic then, an
Yeah.
academic term?
Yeah, we did 3 years, but you do attachments during the summer because you're being paid by the military. So first year I went out to Hong Kong and did 6 weeks, Cyprus, and did 6 weeks in Cyprus, you know, serving around the different units and doing bits and pieces. But that was a little bit of a swan, to be honest.
A sunshine tool, which was very good.
Again?
A sunshine tool.
Yeah. I mean, you can't offer much, you know, it's not an attachment. You're kind of in there and you get to see, but you're back, you know, with the field army, as it were.
So after your 3 years and degree and being successful, when did your posting order come in and where'd you go?
So we graduated in the July of 1990, had kind of a month off between finishing exams and then graduating. And the posting order came in around March time for my posting to 28 Signal Regiment, which was REMF unit, back end Northern Army Group unit, down in Crayfelt. Served under one of the best commanding officers, Arthur Merrick, whom I saw within the past 6 months. Great guy, great unit, and really instilled great skills. Took over what was euphemistically termed penal battalion, which was Gulf Troop. Worked under a fantastic OC, David Jones, who was and 2IC, who was a late entry officer, John Illingworth. Just brilliant, absolutely superb unit, very cohesive. And I'm just, you know, for me, the biggest challenge there was turning around the belief within the troop that they were penal battalion. If you got sent to Gulf Troop, you were being punished in some way. And you know, the leadership, we'd got some great individuals. I'll not name them. Many I'm still in touch with today. Lovely, just the hardest working individuals. But we just turned it around and you know, worked as a team to build them out and get them build out self-belief.
And that's interesting. Again, coming back to that, what we were saying earlier about 7-year-olds and younger who were told they can't do it, and then being told you're in a penal squadron. And I know what that's like because I got posted to 2 so-called penal squadrons in my time, and we absolutely outperformed because our belief was that we could do it. We could be the best. And you know what? Whenever we came to regimental competitions, squadron competitions, we were always at the top because of our belief.
Yeah, you know, it was about instilling. You know, we'd got a couple of guys that couldn't pass a BFT, struggled with BFT, and so I used to go out running with them, you know, and build and just, you know, the BFT is a mindset, you know, and if you get told you won't pass it, and getting somebody consistently passing a BFT and then starting to fall in love with running and fizz, you know, as opposed to being a beer monster, was just brilliant.
And I always found it rewarding, you know, because, you know, I was a physical training instructor, and it was great to get, and the BFT is the basic fitness test, 1.5 miles, jog and march, and then 1.5 miles in your best time, under 10.5 minutes in the old days, before they brought it down to 800 meters in trainers. It used to be in boots.
Yeah, it's now, Yeah, we were in boots. I think we moved, we were allowed to wear trainers, but you were still in your lightweights.
Yeah, yeah.
We'd got a brilliant late entry officer there who was sort of late 30s, but he seemed like an old man to us because
Yeah, yeah,
the
yeah.
army is a very youthful thing. And he did some ridiculously short time for the 1.5 miles. He did like 6:42.
That's fast, that.
And he'd set up the PTIs to set the pace.
Yeah.
So he took the veterans record for the regiment and just the overall
6:42 is very fast. Yeah.
oh, just honestly, he was a proper racing snake. Lovely guy, John O'Rourke. And I said to one of the PTIs, how, that's just astounding. He said, boss, he stopped to tie one of his shoelaces that came undone.
Wow.
So,
Yeah. The fastest I know was a guy who ended up being a sergeant major at 2-2. He did 6.5 minutes.
yeah.
That was shifting. So, right, you come to the end of your degree, you go to 286 Regiment at Crayford, which is known as the penal troop or penal
Well, no,
battalion.
it was the troop within the regiment that was known as the penal.
Ah, right,
troop.
yeah.
Yeah.
And what's happening then? Because where are you now in your head with what's coming next in your life? I.e., what was sparking the interest for you to leave the military? What was happening?
Oh no, so 28 Signal Regiment was a full 2-year posting. I then got posted up to Fordiv, short toured at Fordiv to go and take over from a young officer in Cyprus. So I went to Airfield Troop in RAF Akrotiri, which was culturally very interesting. Came back from there, went to take over a squadron at Blandford, and then got there was a little bit of an issue there, and I got posted to Harrogate.
Let's go back to Akrotiri. What was going on? Because at this time in history, it would have been an interesting time, wouldn't it?
Yeah, no, I mean it was still very quiet because that was 90. So we'd seen Desert Storm, Storm 1 in 1990 when I was at 28 SIG, so there was no deployment there. Then when I was at Fordiv, the Balkans kicked off, and we were providing our armored vehicles, and we were on sort of 24/7 working for a few months to prep and revitalize the vehicles to get them shipped to through Bremerhaven for the Balkans conflict. And then Cyprus was very Sleepy Hollow at the time. Nothing was kicking off particularly.
So for the Balkans, and then because you can go in and out of conflict zones or times of conflict, what was the morale like at the time of the Balkans? Because there was a lot going on then, wasn't there?
Yeah, I think what I love about the military is you've got these very clearly defined mission arcs of fire, if you will. You can make decisions within that. And there's a clear line of travel, clear direction of travel. And the O groups, when the Balkans kicked off and assets were going to be required and vehicle establishments. And because we were not called up, we were not within the ORBAT. One of our brigades was within the ORBAT. In fact, Major Don Steele went off and got recognition for the work he did in building out the comms plan for the Balkans. And so we were effectively prepping to be able to support them with equipment, so whether it was comms equipment, vehicles, you know, the armored vehicles that were going in. And it was just, morale was really high. You know, I found that, you know, when people were actually doing the job, the morale went through the roof. When I was at RAF Akrotiri, there was this pervading belief that we were always behind, and because we were an army unit and the RAF didn't like us kind of scenario. So myself and my staff sergeant, Tony Sartorius, both said, look, you know, this is ridiculous. We're constantly working on a back foot. So we built out a project plan, which I ignored my line of command, which was at Episcopi. We put the project plan, I put it in front of OC Admin, Wing Commander Tonks, and Roger Carr, who was the station commander. And I said, look, this will bring us up to date. It does a faster deployment. We'd got 3 areas. We'd got the rollout of data cabling within the officers. We'd got cable going into the ground, cable and fiber going into the ground. And then we'd got the phone faults. And we just we put the entire platoon, troop on 24/7 working round the clock in shift patterns. So people were, you know, they were doing kind of an 8-hour shift, but we were in patterns, and we project managed it so that they'd got access to the requisite officers. And we came up to a point where, as opposed to 0 faults being something you print off the system and get framed, we were at 0 faults. That was the standard position, you know, so, and the morale went through the roof. We anticipated we were going to have to do it for a month, but within 2 weeks, and the fact that people weren't in this Sleepy Hollow, you know, going in at 7 in the morning, leaving at 1 and sunbathing, people were on this rotation. They loved it. They felt like they were back in the army, and morale went through the roof. Same with prepping for the Balkans.
And when you've got a slick operation going and you're firing on all cylinders, that's when you've got a great teamwork. And how, when things didn't go to plan, right, how was failure dealt with, and how do you deal with it now?
You know, the old adage of the British military: adapt, improvise, overcome. You know, it's you tend to go at something, appraise it, try it, you know, fail, learn, fail, learn. You know, they've even developed it into a complete philosophy for app development, isn't it? Agile development, you know, fail early, fail fast, learn by, you know, learn by failure. It's important. And, you know, when you talk about failure is not an option, it's, it doesn't mean
because that's an interesting phrase. Failure is not an option, which we use regularly in the military, and I think that's the overall mission, isn't it? Not to fail, but the fact is that there's little failures on the way to getting that success, isn't there?
Oh yeah, I mean, you know, war fighting is, you know, as Clausewitz used to say, the extension of politics by another means. But you know, you when the Paras were taking Goose Green, failure was not an option. And when your CEO gets taken down, Colonel H, you know, gets taken down, you know, some people might think that that would be the end of the leadership, but it wasn't. It enraged the individuals that then took Goose Green because their CEO had been taken out.
Exactly. So you've been at Formative, Akrotiri, you've had other postings, and what's happening now from 1993, 94 onwards?
So I went to Blandford, had training support squadron, which was an interesting period, coalescing 3 centres of training, Harrogate, Catterick and Blandford, and bringing all of it to Blandford. So there was a massive training debt, and I was managing the resources as training support squadron commander, managing all the resources that were being deployed into the various training provision. And where Blandford had previously been senior NCO officer level training provision, it was being built as the Defence Communications Centre for Communications, and I'd got systems troop, combat troop, and radio troop, and they were just permanently out. Morale was through the floor. I was constantly getting phone calls off the OCLAD because I just couldn't get my vehicles in for maintenance, so I was behind, and just seeking prioritization. And it was a case of, lifting, marriages were splitting up left, right, and center because of the training debt on the squadron. And we weren't being established. There was no money for building it out to be able to ease it. So yeah, that was quite an interesting leadership issue.
So how were you able to turn that around? What was happening, or was it just a fact that you had to work with something that
just had to work with it? We'd got pretty weak leadership within 11th Signal Regiment, that just so much going on. And I think it was acknowledged that it was a sustained period of austerity as you work through it, and just had to go with it. But there were lasting impacts on people's lives.
Yeah, and that's interesting, because we've seen time and time again austerity, and strategic defence reviews. We've just had one now, and the way that they expect the military to be able to step in at the drop of a hat, and yet our resources are often below what we need, and that can put sustained pressure on the troops, can't it? And that's not just the Army, that's the RAF and the Navy as well.
Absolutely. I think that it's well publicized that retention is absolutely poor, appalling. The Army, with some changes that I mean, there was the initial belief by CDP, Chief of Defence People, that housing was going to be based on need. And commissioned officers' houses, so, and a whole load of young officers, captains and majors left. So the Army saw an outflow, I think it was last year, of 2,500 more than they were expecting. And yet recruitment is at an all-time low, and has been. We're waiting to hear who's getting the new contract for the tri-service recruitment. But it's we've also got a government that sees fit to overturn a bill that has got legacy, the Northern Ireland issues, legacy cases, and it's just absolute madness. Now having left, having served, just the way our troops are treated. CDP must be awake every night, considering the 2 R's, retention and recruitment, because it's not. We're looking to establish, because of the state of the world and the instability in world peace at the moment. But yeah.
Because I was having an interesting conversation with some of my mates who served in Northern Ireland back in the 70s and 80s. And it's always interesting how, by the way, I'll pre-frame this by saying the loss of a life isn't a great way to be. It'd be good. It'd be fantastic if we could all live in peace. the fact is, when you try a situation, or you look at a situation and review it 30, 40, 50 years on, and you weren't at the sharp end at that time, you don't know what's been going on. And to be in a situation where you're looking at it from a desk is always difficult. So yeah, I think that we should be mindful of this fact when we're looking and reviewing case history. Definitely.
It's a political hot potato, and as you say, you know, the military are often picked up and required to do the dirtiest of jobs and expected to get on with it. And you know, the war fighting, you only have to look at you know, Danny Boy, Operation Danny Boy, and you know, the guy that was hunted down by Phil Shiner. And Phil Shiner did a lot of the humanitarian stuff, picked up, was soliciting you know, in the Middle East for and you know, he's got his comeuppance. But you know, it impacted a lot of lives.
Well, thank you for that. So let's go back to your military career, and now you've been you've probably been in a place where your psyche has been impacted when you're dealing with, and your men and women are dealing with a situation where they're under-resourced, and you've been there at the sharp end for a sustained period of time. What's going on in your mind now about the next step in your life, career, vocation?
So ages of man, I was getting to about 30 years old and trying to decide whether I was going to stay in, you know, whether I'd got a promotion trajectory that was of any interest. And for me, my service was very much about command. I didn't want to get to the point of flying a desk. I wasn't bothered about SO3 roles. I wasn't bothered about doing any of the staff officer stuff. It was, you know, to me, that was pointless. And so I was kind of in a position where I was undecided. And when I was posted from Blandford up to Harrogate, bumped into, despite the amount of work we had to do at Blandford, I was being approached by Siemens Plessy in Christchurch to provide real soldiers for their exhibitions, and work with a wonderful guy, Clive Compton. And, you know, I was taking them, much to the annoyance of my Sergeant Major. I was taking them off the sick, lame and lazy list because they were the only ones that, you know, were not working, not operational. As you might imagine, under that sort of work dead, there were a lot of people on the sick, lame and lazy list. So they might as well appear, well, you know, light duties with the army. But it was counterintuitive, but, you know, it was something we had to do. And I was in civvies, and I wandered along to the Joint Warrior Interoperability demonstration where Siemens Plessy were posting. And he said, "Oh, what are you up to?" I said, "I'm leaving," meaning I was posted to Harrogate.
Yeah, you weren't leaving the army, you were just posted.
Yeah, just posted. And he phoned me up the following week and said, "Are you still leaving?" I said, "Yeah." And he said, "Good, send us your CV. We're interested." And I thought at that point, well, I could have explained to him what I actually meant by leaving, or I could actually, you know, just give it a shout. See, you know, if nothing else, it was practice for when I was coming up to leaving, get an interview in. And at the time, PB11 was lying to everybody, telling you that, you know, you'd expect a £5,000 pay cut when you left. I got parity pay as part of the offer and a guaranteed 5K bonus. And I, you know, I laugh and joke about it now, but I think there was something of a hemorrhage of sort of senior captains at the time, because I think everybody figured if I could get a job, they'd be able to. So yeah, there was something of a hemorrhage of senior captains from the Royal Corps.
And obviously you took that as a compliment rather than
yeah. It was my CEO at Harrogate was like, "Yeah, you know, this is a massive opportunity. I recommend you go for it. And he put in a letter to effectively say, you know, with the opportunity I'd got. So I put my resignation in on the 23rd of January, 96, and my last day in uniform was the 23rd of March that year, and had a week off, and then joined Siemens Plessey on the 1st of April, 96, and it took me 20 months to get the job. So.
No, brilliant. So now you're in a different career path. How did that transition go, by the way? And what I recognise of people who struggle with transition more than those who don't, and probably transition well, are those that have prepared for it, if that makes sense, i.e. psychologically and actually with a career path. So how did your transition go?
Tony Wright from the Forward Assist charity puts it brilliantly. And he says, not everybody struggles with transition, but everybody struggles with something about transition. I think for me, the biggest cultural impact to an individual is when you are serving, you are part of a team and you have a mission to fulfill on. And as soon as you go, do you know what, I'm leaving, people leave with a metaphorical foot up the arse, because they're saying, right, I'm not bothered about the mission and I'm not bothered about the team anymore. And for me, that cultural impact was limited to a month. You know, I was leaving, I got a great opportunity to go for. There wasn't this opportunity for the resentment to fester and impact me psychologically. Having supported over 6,500 people as they've left over the following years, there is quite of all ranks, and I've worked with 2-star through to private. You know, they have been impacted by this. Oh, you're not bothered, you know, fuck off, go through the door, we're not interested, because you're not bothered about the team. And it's a very subliminal impact. So I didn't get that. I left. I'd got some great mates. I'd got out. I bought a house that I moved into in Christchurch, 2 miles from the office. Joined a gym. I think for me, the biggest impact was how much you had to spend to how much civvy life cost in comparison.
Yeah, to maintain the same sort of
standard of living. Yeah.
Standard, yeah. Yeah. I recognize that as well. When I wanted to upskill and continue with my professional development, I had to start paying. And yet in the military, I had top class instructors who would teach me, because they'd need to, wouldn't they, if you're doing demolitions and stuff like that. We had the best. And then all of a sudden, I'm having to pay thousands of pounds to get trained by people that were okay at what they did.
Well, you know, for me, it was, you know, I would have had, having done 11 years service, a number of extended learning credits, but nobody told me about them. It wasn't in the 2.5 reams of paper that I got given when I left. But yeah, you know, it soon after leaving, we set up Jimmy in Business.
And that's where we met, didn't we, Jimmy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it was, you know, this is back in 1998. Myself and Ian Foxley, a former colonel from the Corps, set it up. And, you know, we very quickly realized that, you know, while we'd set it up to support people in better understanding the diversity of opportunity within the jobscape in Civvy Street, being able to articulate your ranks, roles, responsibilities, skills, competencies, technologies into something that civilians would understand was quite difficult. But equally, and I remember Ian put together this brilliant presentation that really got people thinking. And he talked about the 5 elements of transition. We talk about 9 now, but 5 elements of transition, and having 3 points of contact for stability. You know, as long as you've got, you know, so I think it was family, finances, employment, location, and community, kind of rest and recuperation. You know, if you'd got 3 points that were stable, tickety boo.
Yeah, you're good to go.
But you know, just getting people to think about that, the feedback we got from it. But it was yeah, many people do struggle with it, but for me it was pretty smooth.
Thank you. So you went to a few sales roles and then you got into technology, didn't you, as a director?
Yeah, I think so the sales roles, I went into sales at Siemens Plessy, loved it, did a few sales courses around, you know, selling to commerce and industry and solution sales, and just absolutely loved it. Loved the sales environment, about building relationships, and what have you. I got headhunted and went into BT. Did 5 years at BT, but as part of it, went into a kind of new media area, which was wireless access protocol, building out. And I loved that entrepreneurial feel.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, just subsequently went into, you know, the entrepreneurship piece is something that's always been in my blood, I think.
Fantastic. And I know you've like that, and you've had various roles as sales director. And then something got you conscious, triggered you conscious, or just made you want to get back, and you resurrected Jimmy in Business, didn't you? In 2012.
Yeah, we resurrected. I've been doing the still doing that pro bono support for people that were transitioning. And we resurrected Jimmy in Business in around 2013, which I think is when you and I first met. We've been chatting for a while, but we first met face to face at the event. And then we kind of rebranded soon after to X-Forces Net, where I had the vision of creating a hub for support. And that was again failing. You know, we built out the platform. We spent a lot of money building out a platform for X-Forces Net. But it was driving the eyeballs to it was incredibly difficult because the noise around that transition space was just so loud, you know, with all of the charities, the CTP provision and what have you. So basically failed at that, but learned. So we didn't fail, you learn. So for me, around 2017, 2018, took all that learning and started building out a concept that is a platform to be deployed to support people, positive transition. But that thinking equally has developed as we've been on that journey.
And tell us a bit more about that, because I mean, probably like most of us, if you cut us in half, you could see Army and your core colours inside and how much you love it. And that's the same for Navy and Air Force. And so this positive, because since way back in 2012, 13, and even before that, when you set up Jimmy in Business in 1999, 98, then you've always been a firm supporter and a real big ambassador for helping guys transition from the military into civvy street, because it can be easy if you've got the right tools. It can be blinking difficult if you haven't. So what is the Positive Transition Limited, and what have you developed, which is absolutely great? And I know you've come up against a few roadblocks, but I think you're getting to smash through them now. What is Positive Transition Limited all about?
So for me, the service provision, if you break it down, it's only around employment. It's only for the uniformed individual. It doesn't take care of the families, and around 50% of people are married when they leave and will have dependents. not least those that are in long-term relationships that are not currently accounted for because of the definition of family. So you've got, and it's time limited as well, from 2 years to before to 2 years after, unless you're long service officer, in which case you get it from 5 years before you leave. And it's only around employment, but there are so many other things that people need to consider. For me, when you are in the military and you've got a deep granular understanding of the military vernacular, whether you've been in 4 years or whether you've been in 44 years, there is this deep understanding of the vernacular, of this environment in which you operate. But civvies talk a completely different language. And so when you come to leave, people struggle to articulate the skills, competencies, ranks, role, responsibilities around the employment path, but equally engaging health pathways. I still find it confusing, and I've been out 30 years, but do I go to the GP? Do I turn up an A&E? Do I phone 111? Do I, what can I get? Do I go to my pharmacy? And, in the military, it's simple. Is it my mouth? No, I'll go to the med centre. If it's my mouth, I go to the dental centre. And it's dead easy. But equally, the NHS has created this fantastic, veteran services, but then it's hard to find it. And if you do a Google search, you don't know, you can find a GP, but how do you find out if that GP's veteran friendly accredited through the Royal College of GPs? So for me, supporting people in understanding, as I say, I got given 2.5 reams of paper, perhaps 5 to 10%, and I'm being generous, was relevant to my circumstances. So taking that tsunami of information, presenting it, aggregating it, and presenting it through a single portal, but personalizing it to an individual's circumstances, providing it digitally, covers a whole swathe of issues with the current provision. First of all, you can cover all of the aspects of transition. So employment, finances, accommodation, health, well-being, community, children, education can all be lumped in together. Building out a community where you can go and ask those questions within, of people that are going through similar circumstances. It's digital, so it's accessible by the non-serving spouse, partner, or dependents. Because it's digital, you can lengthen the epoch and better prepare people through life skills training while they are serving, manage them through. So the platform has a progress compass, which for the non-serving person can act as a confidence checker. For the serving person can actually create a level of governance and provenance, informing conversations around how well prepared they are. So you are not taking from the military the duty of care and responsibility, but you are removing from them the need to prepare that individual. But equally, having that platform with the community, the ex-serving community can underpin the support as people step out. And there is that birthing from the military as people step away from the mission and team and get picked up by the ex-military community, which is this rich resource. So, the idea of the platform, we've built out a strategy of 4 pillars, having recently engaged with one of the ambulance services within the UK that see veterans at a point of need and want an application to be able to signpost them. We can change the UI to be able to deliver that to them. We can provide it as a resource for the call center for the Veterans Gateway, where, at the moment on the Veterans Gateway, which is run by the Office of Veteran Affairs, has got 175 organizations listed. When the Veterans Gateway app was based on the map of need from Professor McKinnon at Northumbria University, there were 18,000 provisions. So, we can not recreate the map of need, but we can create, a series of versions, the personalized version with the progress compass, the point of need for first responders, the resource for the call center, but equally one that faces the employer community and veteran-friendly organisations. So all those that have signed the Armed Forces Covenant, the NHS Trust, the DWP, the local authorities that want to be able to talk to and access people within their community, within their region, then we can develop that as well.
That's absolutely fantastic. And I know how passionate you are about it. And throughout our chat today, it's been peppered with coaches and mentors, people who have helped you, people who've given you an arm around the shoulder or a kick up the jacksie. How important do you think having a good coach or mentor is?
It's critical. I think, you know, the purpose of a coach or mentor can be anything from somebody that is just a sounding board, somebody that is outside your immediate pressures, that can just give you some feedback and sort of ask questions, through to the ones that go, right, have you thought about this? And can, you know, those with lived experience of the environment, those with a network of support that can take you into other areas. And I've been blessed with some really great people that have supported me on this journey. Some I've outgrown, or the not me personally, but the opportunities outgrown, and we've gone, and they've been gone, you're way beyond me now. Yeah. You know, and somebody else has come into the environ and sort of been able to support. So, you know, having coaches and mentors is absolutely critical.
Fantastic, thank you. What's the one tip you give to someone who might be struggling or wants to expand the business or develop, sustain, or is coming out of the military and just wants to know how to integrate well? What's the one big tip you give?
Don't listen to your inner voice. We are our own worst critics. I can't remember who said it, but I think the comment was, if our friends spoke to us the way we speak to ourselves, they wouldn't be our friends.
Yeah, good point, actually. And what does the future hold for you now? In fact, you've shared pretty much it, but what does the future hold for you now? What's your driving force?
Driving force is to put the Positive Transition app under whatever brand we roll it out under, into the hands of every person within the Armed Forces community, families, serving, veterans, reservists, cadets, MOD staff. Put it in the hands of everyone so that there is this collective community. But equally, you know, where the current provision is very much dictated by senior officers and civil servants, one who hasn't transitioned, the other one who hasn't even served, all brilliant, all well-intended, but nobody's got the lived experience. Put it into the hands of the people that are living it to dictate what is good, what is bad. So ratings and reviews on what content is brilliant, you know, what provision is good, and you know, just start to deliver it so that we can build that out.
And that's why we work together, because I deal very much with the business elements and the coaching and the mentoring, and you deal with all the platform, which is absolutely brilliant. So how can people get in touch with you, Tim?
info@plus-t.co.uk, email address. Our website is www.plus-t.co.uk.
Fantastic. And also you've got a LinkedIn profile as well, which people can check you out and look at the vast experience you have in the world of business, sales, and of course the military. So Tim,
I'm failing.
Sorry?
I'm failing.
Oh yeah, well, that's great. Well, win or learn. So thank you very much for your service, Tim. It's been an absolute pleasure speaking with you again.
Thank you for yours, and thanks for doing this. It's great to be a part of it.
Thank you. Remember, you want to learn about the resources that you've got, you can visit joeteams.co.uk. joeteams.com, joeteams.com, Joeteams, because remember, to successful become, visit joeteams.com. And until we meet again, have a brilliant day. joeteams.com is a resource I have created to fulfill my mission to help 1 million veterans and business entrepreneurs like you achieve the goals, dreams, and aspirations they deserve. joeteams.com is jam-packed full of valuable resources specifically designed to help you on your journey to success. Visit joeteams.com now to find out how you can join and start your journey to success immediately. That's joeteams.com, Joeteams, joeteams.com. And until we meet again, have a brilliant day.